Hey everybody, welcome back to the art room. Got a fun little activity for us today to celebrate the winter season. I'm going to show you how to draw and paint this nice little snowman painting, great little decoration, or a gift to give to somebody in our holiday season. So let's get started. Hey, the supplies that we're going to need. Not a ton of them, but here's the specifics. You're going to want to have a little bit of water and a little bit of paper towel. That's going to be so that we can wash out our brushes. As far as the brushes go, what we're going to be looking for is a couple of brushes. We're going to have squared off brushes to get in some of our larger areas, and then we're going to have a pointed brush, which is going to help us get our details in. As far as that goes, the other thing that we're going to need for the paint brushes is the paint itself. What we're going to be looking for is just 4 colors. Really, you might be able to get away with just these 3, green, red, and black, but I do like to have a little bit of white to add some highlights and details at the end of the painting, which I'll show you. Then as far as your paper goes, the paper that we're looking for is a nice sturdy painting paper. This is cardstock. You could do this on a piece of colored paper if you wanted to, but actually the white paper is going to work brilliantly because all of the parts of the snowman that are white are just left as paper. Then the final thing is just a pencil for drawing. I'm going to be using an ebony pencil today so that you can see my drawing lines really well, but a normal pencil will work just fine. Any kind of pencil will do. All right, so let's dive into it. Let's get our drawing made. All right, so to begin, what we're going to look for is along the left-hand side of the paper, you want to find approximately the middle part of that. So halfway down, halfway between on the left-hand side. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a line that goes across the paper, sort of with a little curve on it. Okay, not a big curve, but just a little bit of a curve that goes across. Now, I don't have it wind up on the halfway point on the other side. That's okay. We're creating a snowman, and snowmen don't have to be perfectly drawn. Now, almost every time that I draw, we also use this word parallel. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add in a parallel line to this line right here. And what this is going to do is it's going to create the brim of the snowman's hat. Now, the only thing that you could have done wrong at this point is not leaving yourself enough room up here. We want to add a little detail to it. And for our example, we're going to be adding a little mistletoe detail up at the top here. So you want to have enough room to add a detail up at the top. However, I'm going to start to draw in the snowman's face. So down here, we're going to be having just eyes and a nose. The nose that I'm going to draw is just going to be a big round circle button nose. However, I will open up the possibility, if you wanted to draw it as a carrot instead. But my example, I'm going to be drawing just a button nose. Let's start with the eyes. Now the eyes, what I do is I draw in oval shapes. So I'm going to take a pretty nice large oval shape. You can see compared to my finger about the size that is, it's almost half the size of my finger there. And of course we're going to need 2 of these because they're eyes. So we're going to put in the second one. Now, they should be kind of a similar size, but again, don't worry about it too much. A real snowman is built by children, and typically they would try to just find rocks in the yard to put in and place in as the eyes of the snowman. And so if your eyes are not the perfect size together, that's okay. You wouldn't find 2 perfectly rounded and perfectly shaped rocks to place as eyes anyway, so don't sweat it too much. Now, on the inside of the eyes, I'm also going to place another shape. It's the same exact shape, so it's this oval, just smaller, and I'm at the top right of it. And I'm going to do that in over here as well. And what that's going to do for us is provide our little highlights in the eyes. Okay. Now for the nose, again, I'm just going to put in a really large oval shape in for the nose. But again, you could draw a carrot. Now, the only thing that I would tell you, if you wanted to include a carrot in it, is I would not draw a straight edge triangle. Give it a little bit of curves to it, and notice how we have parallels that happen. This curve right here, we have a line that's parallel to it, parallel to it, parallel to it, parallel to it, and it gives you a 3-dimensional cone shape, which is exactly what you want for a carrot, if you were to do that. However, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to add myself in a really large oval shape right down here. Trying to fill in a lot of the space that's left down here. and I kind of have it centered in a little bit on where the eyes are placed. Now, a highlight on the nose, we always do that as well. So we're going to add in, it's basically the same shape, and again, I'm going to the top right. So this keeps our light source consistent, making sure that your highlights are in the same areas. And we have our snowman faces done. So now the next thing to talk about is how to add the little mistletoe detail decoration here. Now, mistletoe, what it normally has is a little cluster of holly berries and then the mistletoe leaves that go off the sides here. However, if you wanted to get a little bit creative with yours and change the detail that's added, you absolutely could. What if you drew in some candy canes instead? That would look fantastic. What if you just made it a star? Perfect, that would be fine. What if you added in a Christmas tree as the pin detail on your hat? Or you can see from one of the examples of one of my students, they added some other details themselves in here, including a mouth down there and snowflake details up there. For my example, I'm going to show you how to draw the mistletoe detail decoration. So I'm going to start that by drawing in a circle right here. Any kind of circle will do. If you wanted to trace something for it, you could. Now, typically there's a cluster of 3 holly berries, so I'm going to draw in another circle right over here. And so we have these 2 circles. Notice that this one, we don't see the full circle. We're showing overlapping. And so I'm going to include one more circle right up here. And again, I don't want to see the full thing. I'm going to see what happens here behind the other berries. So we have a nice little cluster of berries. Now, for the mistletoe leaves themselves, this is a symmetrical shape. I'm going to have a mistletoe leaf go this way and another one go this way. To start that, I'm going to start right on my holly berry here, and I'm going to draw sort of a rainbow line or a frowny face line. Then I'm going to draw another one of those. And notice that these are kind of going along the same move right now. The points are finishing kind of in a straight line, but my last one, I'm going to do this again, but this one I'm going to have tip up. Okay, so this one, it's another rainbowish line, but I'm going to have it tip up this way to be the middle point of the leaf. Now, in terms of symmetry, we basically want to have these points happen again on the other side. So I'm going to bring a line that comes back this way and ends right about the same spot that this does. Then we're going to curve down and up, sort of a smiley face line to be symmetrical to that one, stopping at the same spot. And then I'm going to bring it back again like this, and we'll just finish that off. And there's our little mistletoe leaf. The last thing to do with it is to just draw a line right down the center of it. Nice little detail there. Now, I'm going to do the same exact thing on the other side. So I'm going to draw this mistletoe leaf, and we're just going to put one on the other side as well. Start it off the same way on your holly berry. Give it a little frowny face line, and then another frowny face line. And notice that these are following along the same motion, but this next one is going to tip up this way. So we're going to tip up this way. And then the other side of it, we just want to make sure that you make it symmetrical. So I'm going to go to a point this way, and then it's like a smiley face line, and then we're going to bring it back, give it one more point, and then back in. One middle line that goes through. And then one final line to get the whole thing done. We're going to have a little red band, okay? It's like a red ribbon that's on his hat. So parallel to this curve right here, I'm going to add in another line, and I'm just going to stop it when I get up to my mistletoe leaf. And there, the drawing is done. We're all set. Hey, keep in mind, too, your mistletoe detail decoration or whatever detail that you chose to draw in here, it might not fit in the entire way. You'll notice my mistletoe leaves got cut off. I only had 2 holly berries showing in this example. Draw whatever you have space for. You don't have to shrink it to make it fit. Now, before we get painting, just a little reminder, don't be afraid to mix things up a little bit. If you wanted to make changes from the example that I've given you here with this drawing, much like this painting that was painted by one of my students, you can see they've added a mouth to it with the buttons on there. They made the nose look more like a rock. The snowflake decorations there, all of that is really cool. Here with the mistletoe, a few other holly berries included in there, but a lot of this followed the example that I gave. Or look at how nicely this one turned out with the carrot nose and the candy cane detail decoration. Also little pieces of coal to include a mouth as well. So don't be afraid to mix things up a little bit, but you will want to make those changes or alterations before we get to the painting. So now, for the painting step here, I'm going to be starting with my squared off brushes because I'm going to be painting relatively large spaces. The pointed brush will come at the end for the fine detail. Now, in terms of the order in which we paint, Red and green are going to be the first two colors that we do. Red first, then green, then black, and then if you're interested, we might add a few details at the end in white, just some extra little cool highlights to be added in. All right, so I'm going to start again with the red. And the things that are going to go in red is the band here, the holly berries there, and the nose here. So I'm going to just get that started. Now, one of the reasons why we start with red is because a lot of our detail lines coming at the end are going to need to be outlined in black. And so we want to make sure that the red is painted in and dry before we do our detail lines. A squared off brush is really nice for doing this because we have a lot of space to cover. However, what I want you to notice, red is a transparent enough color that I will not have to be careful when I get to the holly berries. I'm just going to paint right over the lines that are there. I want to be careful on the edges of the holly berries, although I am going to outline these in black, so I don't have to be too careful right now. But I'm going to paint right over those lines in between the band and in between the berries themselves. Just careful on the edges where the color changes. But red allows us to see right through the paint, so you can just paint right over your pencil lines, the ones that you know you're going to come back and paint in black. My pointed brush might be helpful at this point to get into these spaces. These are really small detail spaces, so that might help me if I switch brushes right now. Then I can get in and carefully paint along those edges there. Now, anything on your paper that should be white, you can just use the color of the paper itself. So if I just go and carefully paint around this spot, I should just be left with that white highlight like I want to. So I'm just going to carefully paint around these spots. Now keep in mind, if you ever paint over a space that was supposed to be white, remember paint covers paint, and you can always go back and add a little bit of white on top. So if you get any paint on the snow or you get any paint on your white highlights, you can always come back and just paint those over in white on top, just in case of any mistakes or you put the wrong color somewhere, anything along those lines that happens. But otherwise, you're just going to be very carefully putting in, going around all the way around, getting all the red in for the nose. Alright, so at this time I have everything that I need to be red is painted in red, so I'm going to take my water and I'm going to wash out the red from my brushes. I used both of these brushes. I'm going to just get that off here. Now, not only do I want to wash it off, though, I also want to dry these brushes off. You don't want to have any water left in your brushes, so I'm going to take my paper towel and carefully dry them off as well. So the next color to be painted in is green. And again, with green, we're going to be able to see right through the paint color. So you don't have to worry about painting around any of your lines. We're just going to paint the green in to the best of our ability. Nice and carefully get everything covered. I have some thick areas of paint in there, so I might take my squared off brush and just kind of spread the paint out a little bit. One leaf down, time to get to the other one. Okay, there we go. We've got the color elements of it are done. My mistletoe leaves are in green. Everything that's in red is in red. So now I'm going to be switching over to the black. So I've just got to quickly wash out my brushes again, and then we're going to switch over to black to complete this painting. Okay, so pretty much every other space that isn't white is going to be black. Now, most of these spaces that I'm painting in black are relatively large spaces, so I'm going to go to the largest brush that I have, and a squared off brush will get the job done. Whenever you're painting and trying to get crisp, smooth edges on things, it's always a really good tip to try to paint in the direction that your line goes. And I've got the brim of the hat done, but what I've noticed, and this might happen for you as well, is I've got a smudge of paint that I didn't want. But remember, paint covers paint. Once that's dry, we can touch it up with a little bit of white paint. No problem. It will look fantastic. I've got to get a little black going up here and black on the eyes as well. For the eyes, I'm going to switch over to my pointed brush to get that roundness of it. And again, the detail in the middle of it is intended to just be white, so I'll just try to carefully paint around it and leave those spaces white and carefully get the edges of the eye done with the curve that I want. All right, the painting is coming along very nicely here. Now we're just left to the nice detail outlining that's going to take place. If you'll notice, I've outlined the nose here and all of the mistletoe, and that's what really sets this apart. Then I have a few white details, highlights that I've added on top of all of that, which we'll get to in just a moment. So let's get into our very, very nice fine detailing, outlining the line. So using our pointed brush, not too much paint on the paintbrush. And we're going to try to get around and get a careful outline placed around all of our details. Don't forget about the little details that we painted over, such as the middle line in the mistletoe leaves. This white outlining also helps out a great deal in case you left blank spots anywhere along your edges. This will hopefully cover any blank spots that you might have left behind. I've got a few blank spots right in there when I was trying to match up where the red and the green come together. Black outline goes over and covers it really well. Alright, I have all of my black outlining done, and I'm really happy with how this is going. I have one little smudge to work on here, but I am going to add a few extra white details here at the end. You could call it quits if you're happy with your painting there. I'm going to add in a few more white details here just to bring it out a little bit further. So let me take my detail brush and wash that out and move on to the white paint. Now, our highlights that we had in play here, the highlights are all on the top right, and I'm just going to point that out because I want to keep that consistent. So as I add in any white highlights that are additional to the drawing that I didn't actually draw in, I want to keep that consistent. So top right here, so I'm going to add in a little nice detail onto the holly berries. Again, the top right, we're just going to add a little white touch to the top there. Top right on all of those. Even on the leaves here, top right, top right, top right. And we'll even go along the top here, just carefully. My brush is pretty dry. It's just adding a nice little touch to it there. We'll do the same thing coming back over here. Top right, top right, top right. I might even put a little bit onto the brim of the hat and the band, the red band as well. So I'm going to add just a little tiny touch of a little white highlight coming across on the red band. Then I'm going to add a little tiny touch of the same kind of detail on the brim of the hat here. Now you could get back in and fix up some of these spots here or here if you wanted to add a little touch to the highlights on those, but I definitely need to fix that little spot right there. Make sure that it's dry first, and then we're just going to touch it up with a little bit of white paint on top. As a final touch, I'm going to go back to the black just briefly. I'm going to add little shadows to my holly berries as well. Just tiny little touches of black on the bottom side of it. Tiny little touches of black there. And maybe just a little tiny touch of that happening on the leaves itself. These are just little touches I'm adding in to just show a little bit more visual texture to it. But there it is. I've got my painting is done. Cute little snowman painting. Not super complicated to draw. Hey, there it is. A great little snowman painting to bring a little holiday cheer into your winter season. Can't wait for you to join me again on the next painting. Thanks, everybody.